my friends, and welcome to the Growing Happy Babies Birthworkers interview series. In this podcast directory, I make sure that you have the easiest possible time deciding which wonderful birth supporter is right for inviting into your family's journey. All the potential members of your essential prenatal and postpartum village are assembled right here in the Growing Happy Babies directory. Doulas, midwives, prenatal and infant body workers, lactation consultants, and so much more. I'm Adina Kopinski, board-certified lactation consultant and fellow mom. Together, we transition more easily into motherhood. Let's grow some happy babies together. Hello, everyone, and welcome again to a wonderful conversation that we are going to have with Sarah Seymour, a home birth midwife in the extended Jerusalem area. And I know Sarah's going to tell us even more probably about where she works. But if you could just start a little bit and tell us about how you got into this profession, midwifery and home birth midwifery, and what was a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, hi, sure. Hello, everybody. Happy to be here today. So I studied nursing when I was young, straight after, out of high school, and I was never planning on being a midwife. I didn't even know that there was such a thing as a midwife. But part of our nursing curriculum was to go and attend some births in the hospital. When I saw my first birth, that was it. I knew I was destined to be a midwife straight away. I was like, okay, that's it. I know what I'm doing from here on out. So I finished my nursing degree and I just went straight into learning midwifery. That was also in the UK. And I became a midwife in the UK. I worked there for a few years. I made Aliyah to Israel. And when I came to Israel, I had young children, language barriers. So it took me a long time to get into midwifery in Israel. But I finally got there and started working in hospital system in Israel, which I truly, truly loved. But there was definitely many drawbacks to the Israeli system, as I'm sure many of you know, with the institutionalization of birth, lack of women's choices, and the way they're treated in many cases. So after a number of years working in the Israeli system, I felt that I was drawn to doing home births in England. That was part of our training, so it wasn't like a big jump for me. And about 5.5 years ago, I decided to leave the hospital system and to focus solely on home births, and I've been doing it ever since, and I love it.
It's beautiful. I love hearing everyone's origin stories. We have a little taste for it already, but can you tell us a little bit about the expertise that you bring to your clients?
Sure. So I've been a midwife for many, many years, and I have been at thousands and thousands of births. And you just gain this muscle memory, this feeling of what a birth should look like, what should be going on in terms of internally with the baby, with the mother. And when a mother is having an easy and straightforward birth, the midwife is there for support and help, but really the mother is doing it without much assistance from the midwife. When the expertise really comes in is when you have a difficult or challenging birth. And that's when all your skills from all the things that you've learned and seen from all the births you've been attending, they come to play. And you don't always know what the answer is, but you get a feeling this needs to be done or that needs to be done, or this can help or that can help. And it's a bit of a puzzle, a bit of a mystery. Sometimes it's physical, sometimes it's emotional. Sometimes it's a bit of both, and getting to the puzzle to help the mother progress through labor before she's totally exhausted and before she's giving up and saying, I can't do this anymore, and helping her to birth her baby in the best way possible is really where I find where my real purpose is. Anybody can catch a baby if it's just falling out. The mother herself can catch the baby, but really being there for the mothers during those challenging births and finding the key to the lock that's going to unlock her labor that she can progress and give birth safely is really where I feel my expertise is. And even though it can be the most tiring and challenging birth, and I can come out of a birth like that feeling totally wiped out, but the satisfaction that I get from that kind of birth is just off the charts. And the mothers are always so appreciative when things move along because of an intervention that I've suggested. So that's why I find my expertise is having a very experienced midwife can definitely help in those scenarios.
Yeah. What kind of interventions, could you give us a sampling of like what kind of interventions you would use?
Um, so there's emotional. We'll start with those because they're kind of easier. Sometimes
Hmm.
a mother is frightened of giving birth, or she has a blockage of some sort, and she may not even be realizing what it is herself. But if she's having good contractions and she's not progressing, then there's something is holding her back. So sometimes I've said to the mother, I think you need to just go inside yourself and dig deep and inside and see what you need emotionally at this point to progress and to deliver. And now, after listening into the baby and see the baby is fine, and with the mother's permission, of course, I and the husband and the doula, any other attendants will leave the mother completely alone, obviously within earshot, so that we can come back when she calls us. Shut the door and sit outside the door. One time we went outside and there was the window to the room, so we were outside in the garden, but there was a window so we could hear if she called us. And really just giving the mother that space to do some internal processing. And that has worked for me many, many times. And the mothers are always like, yeah, I just needed to X, whatever it was, cry, pray, process, forgive, whatever every mother has a different story when it comes to that. So that's one thing that can definitely be very helpful. And physically, sometimes something is holding her back. I have had definitely a few cases where a mother has been laboring well and things have progressed nicely and she's got to transition and maybe it's just not coming out. And, she has like 1 or 2 centimeters left of her cervix to go. And I'm not checking these mothers every 5 minutes. I'm like, okay, like the baby's going to come out, but then it just doesn't. And she's having crazy strong contractions and as if she should be pushing, but the baby's just not budging. And sometimes there's something called a cervical lip, where there's just that little bit left of the cervix and it's just not budging. And even though it can be soft and stretchy, it's holding the baby up. And a few times I've said to the mothers, do you want me to just push it out the way? And with the mother's permission, if they've said yes, it will shorten the labor. Pushed it out the way, and the next contraction, flip, baby's just straight out. It's just beautiful to see. So there is a definite balance here between hands-on doing and waiting and seeing. We don't want to be like having our hands in the mother's unnecessarily and doing stuff that's not appropriate, but sometimes it is appropriate. So there's also other small things I would do as well, but that's just 2 examples of things that I might suggest.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciated the way you delineated them for us, because sometimes interventions can be a triggering word when we're talking about labor. So I'm really happy that we got to hear examples of like the really nurturing and intuitive ways that you use interventions.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a story maybe of a birth that you think, would be a wonderful birth for the pregnant women who are listening to us now to hear about?
So I was actually trying to look through and think through my previous births. I have so many and so many good ones, but I always find it's best to tell a fairly recent story that's fresh in my mind. And I'm actually writing this story right now, and I publish them on my Facebook page from time to time and on my website. So this is one that it was happened fairly recently. It's a mother who's had many, many births, all in the hospital. And she was always disappointed in the care she received in the hospital because they wouldn't admit her because she has these long labors. So she ends up walking the halls up and down, no privacy, no comfort, tired in the middle of the night, hard plastic chairs, like really, and she's laboring, but she's not really making great progress that can be measured in terms of when the midwife would check her cervix, it would still be like, say, 3 or maybe 4 centimeters, and they would not admit her to a room because she's not in active labor yet, even though she's working really, really hard. And every birth, she would have the same scenario where she would just be so exhausted and so disappointed in the hospital system, how they treated her, and obviously monitoring from time to time. And they also wouldn't send her home because she was laboring. So she was stuck in this like limbo place until things would finally pick up. And until she finally got seen and checked and admitted to a room, it was like crazy mayhem, getting her into a room in the last minute and pushing the baby out with everybody like flying around trying to get all the monitor on and put an IV or whatever, all the things that they needed to do. She just couldn't handle another one like that. She's like, I'm done. I'm doing a home birth next time, and that's it. So she contacted me, and her husband was a little skeptical because most men are. to be honest. But he went with it when he saw how much it was important to his wife. And and we had the pool, and I got to her home, and she was still in that you know, pre-crazy phase where she was laboring and laboring hard, but she was, not really progressing, in terms of cervical dilatation. But we knew that she would go at some point, just not entirely sure when. And actually, it didn't take as long as we all thought it might do. And she was in the pool, and she was just so happy, and she was so chilled, and she just like the baby just came out into her hands. She was using hypnobirthing, so she was so chilled and relaxed. And afterwards, she was like, she just could not believe it. She couldn't, and you could see the joy in her face, and the wonderment of how birth can be when it's not surrounded by all this crazy action and mayhem, and you can just be in your body and with what's needed in quietness and in calmness, and just let your baby come out. It was just the most beautiful experience for her, and the high afterwards was incredible. And she was just so thankful and grateful, and it was just wonderful. So that's the kind of births that just like give me so much joy. I mean, all births give me joy, but these ones stick out in my mind because they're particularly a particular change in what the woman had experienced from before.
Wow, I could feel the happiness of that one inside of me.
Yeah.
Have this new experience after so many disappointments.
Right.
I'm so happy she was able to experience that.
Hmm.
Births are transformative, and sometimes births are like they repair something inside of us.
Hmm.
You know,
Yes.
each birth is a new opportunity.
Yes. Yes,
Uh,
definitely.
yeah. Um, if you could give a pregnant woman right now just one piece of advice, what would it be?
So I think pregnant mums have so much intuition and knowledge about themselves and what they need, that they could tap into, that they don't necessarily realize that they have this ability to tap into it and to know what's right for them. So many times women are ignorant of their own needs because they just do what the doctor tells them. I feel women are waking up, but it's important to really to know that it is your body. It's your body, and you need to tap in and see what you need for this birth to happen,
Mm.
whether it be at home or in hospital with a doula, with an epidural, whatever it is that speaks to you, but don't dampen down your own personal space, your own place. And when it comes to giving birth, don't just take advice from the doctors because they don't always have your best interests at heart. Of course, doctors and midwives are good people. They want to help and do the right thing, but they also have all the interests of the institution that they're working for, and they have the interests of their job and making sure that they're not fired for doing things that are out of the ordinary. And sometimes women need something that's different than what the institution has to offer. And don't be afraid to question and to ask and to push back. Obviously, you need to be pleasant and not be rude, because then you're not going to get anywhere if you're very abrasive. But with softness, to always question and ask, and maybe ask for more time or more chance to think about something, or really what is the benefits of such a thing. I mean, just one example is induction at 40 weeks, or 41 weeks if you're lucky, that a woman will go for a post-date checkup and she's 40 something weeks, and they'll be like, oh, let's do an induction. Why? Because that's what we do, and the women will go along with it, often for the first time, and afterwards they realize what happened. They'll be like, I'm not doing that again. They'll go along with it, and as we know, induction can lead to this cascade of interventions, which can lead to poor outcomes. So always question, what are the risks of staying pregnant? What are the risks of having induction? Like, don't just take it as, okay, that's what the doctor says and that's what I'm going to do. So really be educated, educate yourself, read lots of books, speak to people, speak to positive people, and really get down and, with yourself of what you want for this birth, and go with your eyes wide open.
Yeah. Just trusting your own self in a system that's telling you what to do can be so important and so daunting. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of times doulas help a lot with that. Even if, maybe sometimes
Yes.
they're the voice of the mother or the parents, but sometimes they're the confidence, that they're able to infuse the mother with the ability to, speak up for herself or ask her own questions just because she's got that doula there supporting her.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, that's definitely another piece of advice I'd give is take a good doula.
Yeah.
Definitely. Doulas are worth their weight in gold. And even if you have a 10-minute birth and you didn't use her, but she's insurance policy.
Uh-huh.
If you have this long, hard, difficult birth, you have someone who has your back, who knows the system,
Yeah.
who's not going to just say, yeah, you can do whatever the doctors tell you and that's fine. No, who's going to be like, well, this is probably not the best idea for you right now. Let's try something else, Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being here today, Sarah, and giving your words of wisdom to everyone listening.
It's my pleasure. And if I can just add as a side point, I know this isn't the purpose of the podcast, but I do also advocate for women using non-hormonal birth control when it's appropriate for them. If women don't know about the diaphragm, it's one of the up-and-coming forms of birth control, which is non-hormonal and doesn't give you any side effects. And you're very welcome to contact me for more information if you're interested in being fitted for a diaphragm. Okay, amazing.
Friends, check out the full directory for every interview we've done up until now, housed at my website, growinghappybabies.com. But before you go, I've got one question. Are you the kind of person who learns better by listening or by doing? In my 2-part online prenatal breastfeeding class, The Pocket Prenatal, I blend the basics of breastfeeding with practical hands-on skills. Choose to watch the videos on your computer or phone, read through the transcripts, or pop in an earbud, take a walk, and listen to the audio-only podcast version. After you've dived into the what's and whys of breastfeeding, join part 2, our live hands-on class, where we roll up our sleeves and practice the how of breastfeeding. Experience hand expression, learn how to size yourself for better pumping, practice bottle feeding techniques that improve your baby's sucking skills, and use easy bodywork exercises to help your baby's comfort, sleep, and digestion. You're going to walk out of this class with an essential toolkit for navigating early motherhood. This is the class every baby needs their mother to take. Go to thepocketprenatal.com and use your listener code, growinghappybabies, for a special 10% discount. See you there.